Good morning, my magnificent ones. Sue Paulson here, your magnificence mentor. Welcome to Tea with Sue. Well, we're in the heat of August right now, and I have to say I'm enjoying it, even though I get a little sweaty from now and then. But we know what comes after fall, so I'm just basking in what is right now. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about stories and how basic facts can turn into stories that actually can get in our way and actually stop the progress that we want to make in our lives or prevent us from fully embracing the life that we dream of. So let me take you back many years. When I was growing up in the 50s and 60s, it was a pretty traditional upbringing that I was experiencing. I had a stay-at-home mom and a dad who worked away in the oil patch for a couple of weeks at a time, and then he'd be home, and that was kind of the rhythm. So mom looked after the household and looked after us, and then when dad came home, she looked after him. Now, that was kind of the way life worked. That there were specific roles and specific rules and responsibilities depending on whether you were male or female. So, of course, I'm born a girl. I ended up having 3 brothers, and it didn't take very long as I was growing up to realize that my path was kind of carved out for me based on the fact that I was a girl. So tradition had it that if I was a girl, I was expected to learn how to do things that women did, which was cook, clean, have babies, raise families, do work in the community, look after their husbands, all of those sorts of traditional roles. And even though I knew women who worked, and my expectation was that eventually I would go to work, still in the background, it was there that, well, yeah, I might work, but really my whole focus should be on finding a good man to marry who would look after me. And then I'd be happy as a wife and mother. Well, and of course, the guy's role was entirely different, right? So men were doing the important work in the world, according to men at least. And of course, according to lots of women who bought that idea, because it was the 50s after all. And so if men were out doing what men do, they were doing important stuff, and you didn't want to bother them because they were busy, and don't be messing with men's business because men are more important than women. So that was the story, right? It isn't true, but that was the story that I grew up with, was that well, I'm just a girl, so I need to pay attention to what's right in front of me and not get involved with what's going on with men. And so that was fine. I mean, so the story became a part of me, became a part of my makeup and my psyche. And even though I had nigglings of, well, you know, I don't know if that's what I want to do or not, there was still that expectation, I guess. There was that judgment that men are here and women are here, and women can't compete with men. So that was prevalent, and that didn't change with my first job when I worked in the oil patch, because it was very obvious that women were there to support men. So whatever women did in administration, in accounting, as a secretarial, whatever, they were there to support whatever role that the men in the company had taken on. So, but then of course the 60s hit, and there's all of this talk about women's lib and how women can do whatever a man can do. And so when I got married young, I was caught in this sea of expectations. On one hand, I expected to be able to make my own way. I'd realized I was perfectly capable of working and earning a living. And on the other hand, yeah, but you're never going to do it as well as a man does it. And so your man needs to be able to look after you. Except I didn't happen to pick a man who knew how to do that. And so it was a struggle, because I didn't want to take away his role and what I believed he was supposed to do. But by the same token, I realized I was perfectly capable of looking after myself. And in fact, I trusted me to look after us better than I trusted him. And so I'm caught in this trap, right? And I didn't know what to do with it most of the time. I had no clue. I thought, well, the rules of the game have changed, and now I don't know where I am. So for lots of years, I hung out in a certain amount of confusion. And I also kept the story that I'm only a girl. I'll never be able to earn as much as a guy does. And so if I don't make it, or if I struggle, even though I felt guilty about that and I felt ashamed anytime I had a failure, it was looking to somebody else to, well, save me, because, you know, I'm only a girl and I need help. You see the trap, right? Now, if you're lots younger than me, you maybe can't relate to this whatsoever, because you likely grew up a whole lot differently than that. And I watch my granddaughters right now, and they have T-shirts that say, you know, being a girl is my superpower, and it's so different. And I celebrate that, because they're going to be able to be anything they want to be. They can choose how they want to live their lives, and they can be in charge, knowing full well that even though they'll do their lives differently than men will, because let's face it, men and women are vastly different. We think differently, we behave differently, we approach a similar situation or problem differently. And so the outcome may be somewhat different, or may take longer in either case. So there's no judgment around that. It's just that society seems to be quite fond of putting people in little boxes and saying, oh, well, because you are this, 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 and this, the facts are you're this, 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 and this. And therefore the story around that is this. And don't try to get out of your box, right? Just make sure that you just follow whatever the ingredients are for what's inside your box. Like don't try to make yourself anything more than that. Well, we've seen the repercussions over time of subjugation of other people, over and over and over and over again, where one group feels superior to another and does their best to keep them down. And so as a woman, I've certainly experienced that. Where I see the biggest challenge, though, is not in what anybody else is doing. It's what I do to myself. Because I realized just this week, when it came up in conversation about roadblocks that can happen to us right from when we're young, and I realized that this old story that was fed to me when I was younger about, well, you know, you're only a girl, so we don't expect that much from you. I'm still carrying that. And I thought, oh, are you kidding me? And so, the light bulbs went on, and I'm going, oh, no wonder I doubt myself at times and I get roadblocked, because I've been carrying that story in my backpack all these years. And every now and again, when things aren't going as well as I would like, out comes that story without me even being aware of it. And, oh, well, I guess I need help because, I'm feeling a little bit ashamed that I need help, but well, and I don't actually think, well, what can you expect? You're only a girl, but it plays nonetheless. And now that I'm aware of it in big bold letters on a billboard, where before it was just this little niggling thing, then I'm going, all right, so how do I fix that? And I'm not sure that I'm sure how to fix that. But if it's like a program that runs, a habitual thing that is there, then I believe it's possible to replace that program with something else, like turn down the volume of that program that's running around in my mind and replace it with what the actual facts are, not the story, but the facts of how competent I am, how determined I am, how courageous I am, all of those characteristics that are the opposite. Well, I'm just a girl, what could I expect? And that really show me that, not that I necessarily can do everything, but I can do what's most important to me. I am fully capable of doing everything that matters to me and achieving the goals that I set in front of myself. So there's no wiggle room in that. And so it's a little bit daunting to think about that if I replace this program with what I know is true for me and is true especially today, then there's no wiggling out of that. There's no way that I can go back and say, oh yeah, but I'll try. The ego wants to find the escape hatch and the excuse and be less than its magnificent self. There's no question that will go on. And I'm fully aware that we go 2 or 3 steps forward, and then sometimes we take 2 or 3 steps back, and we're going, okay, well, I didn't get as far as I wanted to get. But that's life. That's being human. That's having a human experience. So now that I know, so my thing today was to get you thinking about, what is it? What story have you maybe brought forward from out of the past? A story that you didn't create, that was created and handed down to you or told to you over and over and over, so that it got in your way, or it's still getting in your way in some shape or form. I certainly found this when I was working with people who wanted to learn to speak well in public. So public speaking, which is so scary for lots of people. And sometimes I can think of one instance where I came across one of my students who uncovered the fact that he had taken in at a very young age the idea that he wouldn't be able to do anything good enough. And I mean, we try to please our parents, right? And we want things to be good enough for our parents. But sometimes our parents never tell us that it's good enough, that they're always criticizing us, or always impatient with how long it takes us to do things, and so on. So we make assumptions based on whatever's going on in the moment, and those assumptions could be totally incorrect. And yet we buy into what we believe in that moment, and then it sets us up for failure at some distant point. And it was so fascinating to watch that once this particular thing was revealed to this young man, the light dawned, and he's going, ah, I see. And we were able to work through it. And then he went on to do just wonderfully at the front of the room. So it's those kinds of things that we look for, whether it's, you know, I never felt I was wanted in my family, or I never felt that I was enough, or I never felt that I could do anything right. All of those kinds of stories that we tell ourselves based on maybe a small incident that really in that moment set the stage for it to be hard for us when we were older, and to get in our way. So you know, or if you've listened to me before, you know I talk about the magnificence in each one of us, that we come here magnificent, and we have these experiences to help us move through and come back into that. I mean, if as beyond babyhood, I had realized my own magnificence, maybe I would have not believed there was anything for me to gain from being here on planet Earth. Maybe I wouldn't have grown in the ways I have, because I forgot how magnificent I was when I came here. Same for you. We deliberately forget so that we can learn and grow and experience what's here for us. That's one of the reasons why we come, is what I believe. And so the contrast and the challenges and some of the traumas and the tragedies that we experience all can contribute to our growing beyond where we believe we are, as opposed to where we most want to be. So this is one of the things that I want you to take a look at then, is the story you tell yourself when you're struggling, when you're in a dither about something and it feels bleak or it feels impossible. What story runs in your head? Where's that coming from? Well, exploring that can really help you move to a different place. So, and move to a more positive place. Is it possible to eliminate the idea or that story? Well, my best efforts haven't eliminated it to this point, but I know that more often than not, I do replace it with a different story. I'll say to myself, come on now, Sue, you're better than that story. That story actually is just fiction. It's not true. It's not based on fact. Let's look at what's based on fact here, and then go from there. And of course, part of that means you need to suspend judgment. You need to suspend judgment around the facts that exist. So if your bank account is bordering on zero, or it's into overdraft, okay, that's a fact. Does that make you a bad person? No. Does it make you irresponsible, incompetent, on and on and on, all of the things that you might be feeling because that's what's happening right now? No, that's a story you tell yourself, or a story that other people tell you. So we get to choose whether we're going to buy into that or not. And if we say, well, no, right at the moment, my grandmother, who was, I guess I would call her an unwilling entrepreneur. She had been a housewife for most of her life until my grandfather became mentally ill and couldn't support the family anymore. Well, if they weren't going to starve, then there was no unemployment insurance in those days, that's for sure. So if they weren't going to starve, then she needed to go out to work. And she hadn't worked since she was a young woman, before she was married. Well, she washed dishes in a cafe and then went from there, and eventually ended up owning her own restaurant, which she ran very successfully for many years. Well, I remember her saying at one point in time, she says, you know, I was bankrupt many times, but she said, bankrupt is a man's word. She said, I just kept working. And I think about that, because she worked through it. And yes, she hardly had 2 pennies to rub together at different times. And it was a struggle, and it was tough, but she just kept on, and she was determined, and she was determined, and ended up in her later years of life having the resources that anybody would be pleased to have. So, and yet, quote, she was just a woman, and that was not the role that she had been geared for or positioned for. And yet, excuse me, and yet she was successful. So I take a page from that situation, because she was born in 1904. So as a young woman, coming into the workforce was not something most women did, and especially owning your own business was not something most women did. So you go, oh, yay, grandma, you did so well. Well, she didn't know how to do it, but she just kept putting one foot in front of the other and learned as she went, and fell on her face a few times, and picked herself up and carried on. So she didn't buy into the story because she couldn't, because the reality was, in order to put food on the table, I need to do this. And so off she went. So think about this week, stories that might be blocking you, stopping you, or causing you to trip over your own ideas and your own goals of where you want to be. You know you can do this because you're that magnificent. If you're enjoying Tea with Sue, I really encourage you to subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to build my listenership up a little bit, so hit the subscribe button, and then you'll get the videos every week. You can also access any Tea with Sue that you've missed on. You can access it through my free app, The Magnificence Mentor. So just go to your Apple Store or Google Play to download. You can become a free member, which opens up all the video content, the articles, and so on. In the meantime, take the best care of you. Enjoy every moment you can of every day. I look forward to seeing you next week on Tea with Sue. Bye for now.